KatrinasCreations. This is episode 39. You are not seeing things. I am wearing the same clothes that you saw me in last week because I recorded this at the same time. As I'm recording this, my son and daughter-in-law from Ohio and my 4 grandchildren are visiting with us, so I pre-recorded this so I could be spending time with them because, you know, it's time for grandma spoiling. See, happy grandma face here. So, yeah, so I am going to be busy spoiling my grandchildren when you see this. So this video is going to be about, I'm going to be talking about the yarn shops that I'm going to visit on my vacation, but I'm also going to talk about tips and tricks for budget planning your vacation to try to save some money. So, first information we're going to start with is going to be, how do you plan your vacation? First thing you need to decide, of course, is where are you going? So in my case, we like to go to New England a lot, and I already knew where I was going. But if you don't, places to check out are travel books, TripAdvisor, looking at travel DVDs. You can go to your library and you can get free travel books. I work at a library, so I know all this stuff. You can get travel DVDs, and you can get travel books. You don't have to go buy them. You can borrow them from the library. You can also probably get them on an ebook and download them, and that way you could take them with you with no problem and just pull them up as you need them. So using all of those things, if you think you've found an area that you might be interested in to go on vacation, you can also go online. Like for instance, we're going to Newport, Rhode Island. I just went Newport, Rhode Island, things to do. And all kinds of things pop up. You know, as far as suggestions, one of the best ones is to go to TripAdvisor. I love this website. I use it a lot for restaurant searching. I use it for reviews, and you can also do things to do on it. It gives you different categories. You just click on the little windows up at the top of the banner on the web page. So if you just click in things to do and type in the city you're interested in, it will give you the top 10 rated things, and then you can rate from down below there, but it'll give you the top 10 right on the first page. So those are things to decide where you want to go. The next question you have to answer for yourself is, how do you want to get there? And how long do you want to stay? Now there's different options. You can go by train, but what I have found with train travel, because I think it would be fun to go on a train, to go on a vacation, but I would have to consider the train as part of the vacation. Because when I've compared prices, I'm finding that a lot of the train travel, at least here in the US, is just as expensive as airline fare. And it takes you as long to get someplace by train as it does by car. So for us, every time I've looked, it hasn't been cost effective. So even though it would be fun, it hasn't been even an option for me. So if you do go by plane, and we have gone up to Maine by plane, we've gone to Florida by plane before, there's a couple things that you can look for to save money. Number one is look to book your tickets on a Tuesday. For some reason, it is always cheaper on Tuesdays. I don't know why, but website after website after website that I checked said, look for your plane tickets on a Tuesday. Check different sites. Check Orbitz, check Expedia, check TripAdvisor. Look at all of those things. You can sometimes get a package deal if you go on Orbitz or Expedia or TripAdvisor. You can like bundle together a trip. You can put your hotels, you can put your cars on it too. So you really have to do some comparative pricing. But I have bundled together my car and my plane fare before and gotten a better rate because you're bundling something. So it's worth it. It's worth an option. It's something to at least look at to compare. A lot of times the hotels are more expensive hotels, so I don't find that always works. But the plane and the car bundled together does sometimes save you. You also can save based on what time you fly out. If you're flexible and you can go in the early morning or the late evening, sometimes, not always, but sometimes those flights are cheaper. They usually are less full. It's not as crowded in the airport, and you get through things a lot faster through security and things. Round trips are always cheaper than one way. So that's another option to keep in mind. Although if you're going on vacation, you're probably going to want a round trip. But, you know, just in case you would be planning. We had to fly our son home from college one time on a one-way ticket. We couldn't do a round trip, and it was quite a bit more than if we had done the round trip. The other thing is, the more connecting flights you have, the cheaper it gets. If you fly nonstop, you're going to pay more money than if you stop in another airport. You see, airport systems are set up so that there are certain airports that are hubs. Like when we would fly to Florida, the hub for our area, we would always fly in to either Georgia, we would fly into Atlanta, or we would fly into somewhere in North Carolina. So there's always a hub connector, and then you pick up another, like a little short hop to the next area. So the more stops you put in, the cheaper your airplane is as well. I've never gone beyond just one because I get afraid of missing flights, and our flights have never been that long. We've either flown to Florida or we flew to Maine. So, but we've always had a connecting flight. I've never done a non-stop because they were just entirely too pricey. They were almost twice the cost. The other thing is to look for price differences between airports. Where I live in Gettysburg, I have two options. I could go to Harrisburg, which is about an hour away, or I could go to Baltimore Washington International, or it's also known as Thurgood Marshall. I could go to one of those two. The difference in price, now to go to BWI is a little over an hour. Not much, it's a little over an hour. It's a little further than for me to go to Harrisburg. But the price difference is unbelievable. When I checked the two, it was almost $100 difference in price to fly out of BWI than it was to fly out of Harrisburg, because it's a bigger airport. So if you've got several airports within driving distance, check the difference in price based on which airport you fly out of, because it really does make a difference. The other thing to look at is when you've got to store your car while you're at an airport. There's usually off-site. You can store it at the airport for a price, but there's usually off airport sites that offer parking. You just want to make sure that they have a shuttle service to the airport and that they have 24-hour service. You don't want to show up to pick up your car at 2 in the morning and nobody be there. So you want to make sure that they are monitored 24 hours and that they've got cameras so your car is safe and everything. But they are usually cheaper than getting your car stored at the airport itself, and a lot of times if you check them out closely, they offer coupons. You know, the ones that we've used before that have been off-site from Baltimore, Washington, it was like if you used it 6 days, you got the 7th day of parking free. You know, it's not much, but any little bit helps. So that's an option as well. The other thought with getting your car, if you get an entertainment book, sometimes it's worth it just to buy the entertainment book just for the car rental. They offer car rental deals. You can usually preview the book online before you buy it. Don't buy the entertainment book before Christmas because it's more expensive. If you wait till January or February, they're selling it for under $10. And you get local coupons, but you can also get car rental. There's some hotel coupons. I've never found them overly beneficial because they weren't for hotels I was staying in. They're more high dollar hotels. But yeah, for the car rental, I've taken $14 or $15 off of a car rental, like per day, off of using the entertainment book card. You can also get like free upgrades from, instead of an economy car, they give you a free like mid-size car or something like that. That'll be no extra charge. So there's benefits in doing that as well. The other thing if you have to do a car rental, to take into consideration with what airport you're flying into, car rental prices can vary. We found that if we flew into Maine, into Portland at the jetport, Maine charges a higher tourist tax, so therefore their car rental fees carried a higher tax rate than if we went over the border into New Hampshire and flew into Manchester. Not only was it a bigger airport, so the flight was a little bit cheaper going in there, but the rental cars were also cheaper because their tax on it was at a cheaper rate than Maine's was. So it's all those different things to figure into if you are going to rent a car. So check out your airports, and check out your rental cars. With hotels, do not stay in the cheapest hotel that's out there. There's a reason it's cheap. We have found this numerous times. When I first started planning vacations or going away, I was looking to save money, and I would go on TripAdvisor, because that's the one I use primarily. I think Yahoo has one, like I said, Expedia, Orbitz, Booking.com, which I use Booking.com a lot as well. But all of them will show, when you type in the destination and your date, I organize them by price. You can sort them however you want. I usually sort them by price. And then second, I'll look at the ratings on that hotel and the reviews on that hotel. But I have stayed in hotels before that were the cheapest. And like I said, there was a reason. We stayed in one down in Virginia. I won't even say where. The walls were so thin, there was 3 people in the room next door, and I heard more than I ever wanted to. And I learned my lesson that way. We stayed at another one. Apparently I didn't learn it really well. We stayed in another one in the same town on another trip that we went down. And it was apparently because it was cheap. It was a party hotel. And there was noise off and on all night long outside. So the smart thing is, think about who might be staying in the cheapest hotels. And so it's not always the best bargain or the safest bargain. So I don't stay in expensive hotels either, but I don't stay in the cheapest one. I stay in one of the cheaper ones, but not the cheapest. You can check the star ratings on it to see what kind of ratings it's got, and always check the reviews. The hotels like we're staying on this vacation, they all have, even though they're relatively cheap, and I will share with some of the prices we're getting on them, they've all got really good reviews. If you start looking at the reviews and you see only one that's maybe a bad review, look at how far back that was. If it's recent, then avoid it. If it's gotten good reviews in the last year or so, then, it might be under new management or something. So I usually, if I see more bad reviews than good, or even if it's kind of iffy, I avoid it. It's just not worth it, especially if you're staying more than one night. You want to feel someplace where it's safe and it's clean. Another thing to watch for, especially on the East Coast, is bed bugs. Creepy, I know, bed bugs, but that's one souvenir you do not want to come home from your vacation with. And unfortunately, the Washington to Boston corridor, if you look at the bed bug sightings, it's like lights up red, so you want to be really, really careful where you stay. There are 2 websites that can help you out with that. One is called Bedbug Reports. One is called Bedbug Registry. What I do is, like when we're staying in Newport, I typed in Newport, Rhode Island in both of those websites, and they listed, at that point, I don't think there was any that had been found with bed bugs recently. But anyway, you want to go through and check. If you have a specific hotel you're staying in, you can actually even type in the name of that hotel and look. That may sound like a crazy suggestion, but one time we were scheduled to stay at some place, and I won't mention where it was, but we were scheduled to stay someplace up in Maine. And I had already booked the hotel. It had been fine when I booked it, and I found out a week before we went that they had had a bed bug incident at the hotel, and somebody had gotten all kinds of bites, and they ended up, spending part of their vacation making sure they didn't take those little creepy crawly souvenirs home with them. I thought, I don't want to do this on my vacation. I don't even want to risk this. So I called up and I canceled the reservation and got a reservation elsewhere. And apparently by the tone of the voice from the person I talked to, we weren't the only person that did this. So yeah, just be very cautious. And when you do go into a hotel room, and the first thing you do, never put your suitcases down on carpeting. Always put them on a hard surface, like on the tabletops, or put them in the bathroom on the vanities. Put them someplace where you can see that the surface you're setting your suitcase down on is completely clean and bug-free. You can look, these are places I've seen to look, as behind picture frames. to look between the mattresses, like where the box spring is, right where the box spring curves, where it goes around the corners. Look in those corners, look in the sheets, to see if you see any kind of little black specks, which are usually the residue they leave behind, if you know what I mean. So, and there's websites that you can go to check out for yourself as far as what to look for bed bugs. It's always better to be armed and know what you're looking for before you decide to stay there. Another thing I always do, first thing when I walk into a hotel room, I check the cleanliness of the bathroom and I pull back the sheets. I want to make sure that the sheets I'm sleeping in are clean, because I have had that happen numerous times. We've pulled it back and it looks like they have not changed the sheets. Or we've found unidentified hairs. We'll just say it that way. Unidentified hairs in the bed. And, you know, it could have fallen off somebody while they were leaning over the bed, making the bed, but maybe not. We don't want to try that. So I always make sure I would rather go back to the checkout desk and ask for a new room or ask them to change the sheets when I get there, rather than when I've been out all day long and it's late in the evening and then I've got to track somebody down to come in and change my sheets. So, like I said, it's the first thing I do. I never use any of the drawers. You know, even if we're going to stay someplace several days, I never unpack my suitcases. They stay in there and I keep my suitcases zipped up. That way I don't have to worry about any, you know, at least it lessens the chance. I don't want to take a chance of anything crawling, you know, even if it's, I don't know, ants, anything. I don't want to take any chance of anything crawling into my luggage or into my clothes. So I do that. The other thing I do is for meals. I guess I'm just cheap. We don't go to 4-star restaurants when we go on vacation. We do like to try to avoid the chain restaurants. We like to eat what the locals are eating. So a lot of times one of your best advice is to go and ask at the checkout desk. Tell them what you're hungry for and ask what they would advise, because they know where all the good stuff is. So that is one option. Another thing I forgot to tell you about with the hotels is to book them on, and it was kind of assumed, book your hotels online. Years ago, I think it was back in 2005, it was the first time my husband and I went up to New England. We stopped outside of Plymouth in a town. I had booked the hotel. The hotel was a Holiday Inn Express. We had booked it. It had only opened 6 weeks before. The place was amazing. It was spotless. You could still smell the sheetrock. I mean, it was that new, and it was gorgeous. And we walked in. We paid. Now this was 2005. We paid $79 for the room for the night with 2 beds in it. A guy came in right off the street while we were standing there to book a hotel room for the night. He paid for the exact same room $170. Yes, that is how much you can save by booking online. And the further ahead you book, the cheaper you get it usually too. But yeah, it does pay to shop online. So back to the meals. I always try to find a hotel that has a breakfast included. I know the breakfasts are continental, and a lot of times they're just bagels and fruit, and you know, sometimes they're minimal. Sometimes they're fairly decent, and they offer waffles and eggs and stuff. Those are really good. But anything that you can do like that, it saves you a meal. You know, and if you can get that hotel for the same price as one that doesn't have a meal, if you're staying there for a week, that adds up. So we always look for something that's got a breakfast included. You can pack a snack. In my husband and I's case, sometimes we'll eat lunch, sometimes we'll eat a big breakfast at the hotel, and then we'll skip lunch and we'll actually eat an early dinner. You know, like around 4 o'clock or so, because a lot of hotels offer, a lot of restaurants offer early bird specials, and you can go in there and get a decent meal and not pay a small fortune for it. The other thing is to check for coupons. Once you've decided places that you want to go, check for coupons in that area. Another idea is there is a website called restaurant.com. What it is gift certificates, but they're at a discounted rate. So what it might be is, it might be a restaurant offering say a $10 gift certificate, but they'll sell it to you for $5. Sorry for that pause. The telephone rang, and so yeah, we're back at it again. So back to the meals we were talking about. I check TripAdvisor. You can also, like I said, I use TripAdvisor a lot. You can up along their top bar, the menu bar at the top, you can click restaurant, you put the town you're going to be in. You can pick by price. It has little dollar signs. You can like narrow it down by what type of food you want to eat. It's like on a sidebar. You can click what type of food you're interested in, what kind of price. I think it starts with like $1 sign, $2, $3, and then it goes to 4. The 4, of course, are the most expensive meals. I usually stick around the 1 to 2. Like I said, I don't like to spend a small fortune when we go out. So you can also, once you find restaurants you might be interested in, I usually go right to the website of that restaurant, and I look at their menu to make sure that it's, stuff we're going to eat at a reasonable price. I mean, sometimes you'll find the same thing at several restaurants at different prices. So I do shop around because I like to know what I'm getting into before I go in. And my husband and I are not into like fancy frou-frou type of food. I don't even know what you call that. Just the fancy, little teeny piece of food, big plate. Yeah, not into that. We're more like just home cooking type of people. So, yeah, I can check the menus ahead of time. I can check the prices and see what we're getting, because I don't like surprises. And so I am going to show you my itinerary. I also want to tell you a little bit about packing. Whether you're taking a plane or whether you're staying in a hotel, my husband and I have always been able to pack everything for we've gone, I think our longest has been 9 or 10 days on a vacation, and we've taken carry-on luggage for it. What we do, you can wear the same pair of pants or a skirt twice. We just change our underclothes and our shirt. So, for 10 days, I'm only going to pack 5 skirts. I'll pack 10 shirts and 10 underclothes changes, but, I can wear a skirt twice. I tend to pack things that don't wrinkle, because I mean, most hotels have an iron if you really do need it, but, I also split our suitcases between my husband and I. In other words, I don't have a suitcase and my husband doesn't have a suitcase. We don't do it that way, because if you're on a plane and they lose one of them, one of you is going to be out of luck. If you split it and they lose one piece of luggage, even if you're taking full-size luggage, split your luggage between you and your traveling partner. That way, if one gets lost, you've still got things to wear. And in our case, it also makes it easier when you go into the hotel, because you don't need to carry both sets of luggage in. You just carry in what you're going to need. So my husband and I do that. Like we're going away for 7 days. One suitcase will have like 3 days worth of clothes. The other one will have 4 days worth of clothes. And so when we get to the hotel that we're staying in, we're not dragging both of those suitcases in. We're both going to take in our little toiletry bag, because that's usually got, that usually has our like my husband's shaving stuff, my makeup, if we're reading books or magazines, that type of thing. My knitting, of course, we've got to have my knitting. Can't go anywhere without that. So we're going to be carrying that in. We might be carrying in whatever little snacks we might be eating for the evening, because you buy them out of the vending machine, you're going to spend a lot. We just buy them ahead of time, take them with us, and we've got them. And that goes for like drinks too. Well, even if we stop at a local grocery store or something, we'll get, like a soda or something, or whatever we're going to drink, juice or whatever, and we'll just bring it back. And most of the hotels have refrigerators in the room, so we just stick it in there, and we've got a nice cold drink when we come back. So we do that. Like I said, we split our clothes up, and that saves a little bit. And I don't take my own shampoos and soaps. The hotels provide them. If you're paying for them, you might as well use them. And a lot of times they're nice ones. In fact, I've used some that I enjoyed so much I went online to see if I could buy them. So it's a good chance to, try new things. Unless you have problems with allergies, like some people are allergic to different stuff, you don't want to experiment with that on your vacation. But if you don't have allergies, I've gotten Pantene shampoo on vacation as some of their samples. You know, sometimes they're higher, sometimes they're cheap stuff, but sometimes they're higher end, and they're hoping that you like it and then you want to go buy it. So I always use what they provide, and to be perfectly honest, if we don't use it when we leave, that's what you've paid for. I take the shampoo and the soap with me, and it works out great because when we have company stay with us, it's nice because they might not have brought it. So I always set out our little hotel samples out on the bathroom sink, and that way our guests have something to use if they would like to. Because who wants to come stay at somebody's house and have used soap, you know? And I hate to throw a whole bar of soap out if somebody's only used it like maybe a night or two that they've stayed at our house. So it's nice because I just pull out my little hotel soaps, and then they've got a fresh bar of soap, so they know they're not using used soap, and I don't have somebody's used soap sitting in my bathroom. So it works out nice. So it's a win-win situation. So now let me show you my itinerary. I'm going to show you where we live and where we're going to. We live in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, which is right here. Here's Maryland. We are like central south Pennsylvania. And we are going to Connecticut. We're going to be going up this direction. Here is Connecticut right here. It's right below Massachusetts. And then Rhode Island you can't even see because it's the tiniest. For those of you who are not from the United States, Rhode Island is the smallest state in the country. I think the next smallest is Delaware. But Rhode Island was the first to ratify the Constitution in 1776. So, and there's a little southern tip of Rhode Island called Newport, and that's where we're going to be going. So, now I'm going to, let me flip to Connecticut so I can show you where we're stopping each day along the way. We are going to be gone a total of 7 days, so it's a shorter trip for us than it usually is. Connecticut. Okay. The majority of our traveling is going to be in Connecticut. And our very first day, we are going to be, let me find it, I can show you. Okay, we are going to be spending the night in Branford, Connecticut, which is just east of New Haven. New Haven is where Yale University is, so right where my finger is right here. So we'll be about midway across Connecticut the first night. The second night we will be in Newport, and I'll show you Newport in a few minutes. So here's what our itinerary looks like. When I plan an itinerary, this is it's not finished yet because I'm still working on it, but this is how far I've gotten. And I used to actually use MapQuest and actually plan out and print out all of my directions to go everywhere, but the car we've got has a GPS, so we're going to experiment with the GPS. So I don't have to go as detailed as I used to. My first sheet is fast food along I-95. Because we are going to be hitting it at lunchtime. We aren't familiar with the area, don't want to be getting off too much. So because we're going to be right on I-95, it's always great to know where there is a bathroom. If I need, because, yeah, when you get older, you need to stop a lot. So anyway, yes. So these are all the fast food places and their locations. So if we need to stop for whatever reason that might be, I know where they're at and how to get there. So I just keep that on hand for coming and going because, like I said, we're going to be going through Connecticut. So I have our first day, day one. We are going to be traveling to Branford, and I have our hotel listed. And then I have listed below that, I have dinner options. These are places that are options to eat dinner at. They are close to the hotel, and I have the addresses listed, and they're ones that I've gone online, looked at the menu, made sure that it's in a price range we're comfortable with, and then once I know that, you know, it's got good ratings, it's got good prices, and, you know, I've included a couple of fast food places because if we eat a big lunch, we might not be hungry for a big meal. So I've put all of those addresses down. So that's the first day. The second day, like I said, we'll be traveling from Branford to Newport, Rhode Island. So we will be going, here's Connecticut again, we will be going from right about here, the rest of the way across to here, crossing in to Rhode Island, and then I'll show you a map of Rhode Island. Like I said, it is small, and for those of you that live in the United States, you know what Rhode Island looks like, but for those of you, I know I have some viewers that are out of the country, so I wanted to show you so that you could see what it looks like and where we're going. Okay, here is Rhode Island. So we're actually going to be crossing into it right here. Newport is right here. There's a bridge that comes across right here. You can go up this way to Providence and then come down again. But we aren't. We're going to cheat and come right across here and go across the bridge right in to Newport on that day. So, that being said, our second day on the way, there's a couple of yarn shops I'm going to go in. I'm going to in Groton. I believe it's pronounced Groton. It looks like Groton, but I think it's pronounced Groton. It's just outside of Mystic and New London. It's right in that area of Connecticut. There is driftwood yarn, and there is a hand dyer that I actually chatted back and forth with a little bit called Groton Dye Works. She doesn't sell to the general public, but she sells in that store. So when I go on vacation, I'm looking for souvenir yarns. I want to get stuff that I can't get at my local yarn shop, because if I'm going to buy regular yarn, I would rather give my local yarn shop business. So I'm specifically looking for things that I can't find anywhere else. So Driftwood Yarn carries Groton Dye Works, June Pierce Yarn, Gigi Boni, I'm not sure, Bonin, Knits for Comfort, and Fuse Fiber. So those are all local dyers that they have, so I'm going to check them out. I don't know if I'm going to buy any of them, but I'm going to check them out. I'm also going to be stopping at Old Saybrook. The store is called The Knit, and that one I couldn't find what they had. I was able to find out what their hours are the day that we'll be going up there, so I'm going to check that out. There was a restaurant right around the corner from there that I saw good reviews on, so we're going to try that place. It's called Greg's Restaurant. And then we're going to stop just before we go over the bridge at the Mermaid's Pearl. And they have, it's called Claudia Hand-Painted Yarn. And I think I mentioned this a couple episodes ago. Claudia, her yarn works, I think it used to be called Claudia's Addiction. I don't know if it's still called that or not. But it's Claudia Co. I forget exactly what it is. Anyway, it's Claudia something or other. But I was watching the SSK Yarners, and it's their episode 11. They actually went to this dyer's studio and had her dyed yarn, and that's down south. They live in the, I think it's Georgia area. I think they're down in Georgia or South Carolina, somewhere down there. I think they're around Atlanta, so I guess that would be Georgia. So, yeah, it's close to them, so I never expected to be able to see any of this Claudia's yarn up here in the north, but they apparently carry it, so I'm going to check that out since I saw the dyeing studio and it looked like it would be interesting, and I liked what I saw on their video. So, that's what the yarn shops we're going to be checking out that day. Then I've also put on my itinerary, because we have to go across that bridge, there is a toll. So I looked up to find out how much the toll is, because I want to know ahead of time whether it's going to be worth it to cut across or go around. It's only $2. We can do it. The hotel we're staying in, we've already paid for it. It includes a breakfast. And I think the most expensive hotel we're staying in the entire time is about $100. I was able to shop around and, like I said, get not the cheapest hotel, but certainly not the most. It's still in the economy range, but these all have good ratings, and people repeatedly mentioned that they were clean and that they were nice and that the staff was good. So that's why I picked the hotels that we're staying in. So then what I did, we're actually staying in Middletown, which is just on the edge of Newport. It's not right in Newport, but it's like right next door, like maybe just outside the city limits. So we're staying in a town called Middletown, and it just so happens there's 2 knitting shops there. So I looked them up. One is called the Knitting Corner. One is called Knitting Traditions. Knitting Traditions does not have a Facebook page or a website, so I don't know their hours or anything. I wish yarn shops would put those on there because it would make it so much more easy. I love it when I can go on a website or a Facebook page, preferably a website, and see what kind of yarn they've got, see what their hours are. You know, I'd like to know whether it's going to be worth my effort to go see them. So I'm not sure if I'm going to hit that one or not, but they're right around the corner from the hotel. They're just down the road, so why not? So anyway, I have written down those two, and then I've written down food, and it's continued on the next page. I've written down food in Middletown, so if we don't want to go, because the parking can be expensive in Newport, so we're going to probably be taking a good majority of our dinners right in Middletown. So I've written down not only just fast food stuff, but other local places that are available in Middletown. Then I've looked up Newport, and because, like I said, they have expensive parking, and even though we're going in the fall when it's not as touristy, you know, because right now it's probably crazy up there. But I still like to know where the public parking sites are. So I've written down all the public parking and how much they charge per hour, because some of them are more expensive than others. Then I've also done a section here called Things to Do in Newport. And I've gotten this information from, like I said, TripAdvisor, from DVDs, travel DVDs, just Googling things to do in Newport, Rhode Island, travel books. I've gotten it from there. So there is a fort called Fort Adams, and they do tours of the fort. There is a sunset walk at Fort Adams that doesn't cost anything. It's just basically walking the perimeter of the fort, and they say the sunsets are very pretty there. There, of course, are the Newport mansions. This was the Gilded Age, so there's a lot of mansions that were built by wealthy people. They called them cottages. Yes, they're like huge chateaus type of thing. There's lots of them. They're open to the public for a fee. They were built primarily between the mid-1800s to the early 1900s. The largest out of all of them, the most opulent, is the Breakers. And my husband and I have seen that before. We have been to Newport before, but not to stay. We just kind of were going through there. And we did see the Breakers before. It was unbelievable to think of somebody living under that type of a lifestyle. I can't even imagine it. But it wasn't. It was funny. I was talking to this man. We were all standing out on this balcony looking out at the ocean. And this guy said, you know, it's all pretty, but it's not a home. It's a house. And he was right. It was absolutely gorgeous, but it wasn't some place that you would feel like you could kick your shoes off and put your feet up on the furniture, which is what I do at home. So, yeah, it wasn't real homey. But it was pretty inside, and so we'll probably look at least one of the mansions. So I have the prices written down for the mansions. If we go in another one, it will probably be either the Elms or Marble House, which are the next two opulent. It's like, if you're going to go look at a mansion, let's go all out and look at the great big fanciest mansions we can see. Why not? So, yeah, so we're doing that. There is a knitting shop in Newport. I'm not sure if I will go to it or not because, like I said, the parking can be apparently difficult, and I'm not going to spend an arm and a leg to go in a shop that I might not buy anything in because, again, I couldn't find a website. I could find their hours, but I couldn't find a website. So there's that to do. There's also the Cliff Walk, which is free, and it actually walks around the perimeter of where a lot of these mansions are, and it's sort of like the shore walk in Bar Harbor, where you've got the mansions on one side and the ocean on the other. So it's really pretty to see. We haven't walked part of it. We saw part of it when we were at the Breakers, because part of that walk goes right around the back end of the Breakers. So it's a 3.5 mile walk that you can do. So not sure how much of it we will do, but I also put down on my itinerary where the best place to park to do this walk is. There's a couple of different options, so I've gotten that written down. Then there's the Ocean Drive. There's some roads that go right along the coastline as well. And of course that doesn't cost anything, so I've got that written down. There's a trolley tour. So they take you through 90 sites that are the best the best sites in Newport. So I've got the price written down to that and the address of how to get to that location if that's something we're interested in doing. Not that we're going to do all of these. This is just, I always write down what options we have, what days they're open, where to park, and how much they cost. There's a Museum of Newport History, which just asks for a $4 donation to go in and look. And then one thing we definitely want to do, I want to take a harbor cruise. I want to see the mansions from the water. I think that would be really pretty. So that is my things to do in Newport. Then I've also put down food in Newport, just in case we happen to be there at dinner time. And then I have things to do elsewhere in Rhode Island, because Rhode Island is a small state. You can get around it pretty quick. So other things to do. There's a Museum of Work and Culture in Woonsocket, which is about industrial history and the French-Canadian immigrants and a textile mill. Sounds right up my alley. So it sounds like it'd be something that would be fun to go see. And it shows what the tenement houses looked like back then for the mill workers. So I think it could be interesting. And then there's something I thought my husband would like. It's called the Frosty Dew Observatory. And it's down in Charleston. On Friday nights, they just ask for a donation. They have a big telescope, you know, the type of the dome ceiling, and the dome opens up and the big telescope pops out. Yeah, that sounds like it'd be cool. And it's on Friday night at sometime after 6:30 as it starts to get dark. So I thought that would be fun. And just to let you know, we're not hitting all these yarn shops, and my husband's just sitting idly by, you know, having nothing to do. We do stop and do things he likes to do too, so we kind of trade it off a little bit. So don't worry, my husband's taken care of. He's getting to do stuff too. We aren't leaving him out. This is not my yarn vacation. So other things to do in Providence, I doubt we will because we're not big city people. But anyway, they do have a water park and river walk that you can do, and they have heritage and historic tours. So, like I said, I kind of doubt we would do that just because we're not big city people. Don't like crowds, so I don't know. But then we're going to have, I have one day that we're going to go to Central Falls and East Greenwich. Now, Central Falls, Pawtucket, and Cranston area are like suburbs of Providence. And there are a lot of yarn shops. Like I mentioned a few episodes ago, the Connecticut and Rhode Island are right around the Blackstone River Valley, which was known for a lot of good textile mills. Lowell, Massachusetts is along the same stretch, and Lowell, Massachusetts that was one of the major mill works in the country, textile mills. And we have visited there, and it's very noisy. It's not operating anymore, but just one loom could shake the whole building. I can't imagine what it was like when it was like running full blast. So anyway, in Central Falls, there's Peter Patch's yarn, which I've mentioned before. It's discounted yarn. It's from mill ends, and it's super cheap. And I really want to get there and get some just plain white yarn or like off-white yarn that I can dye, because I want to experiment, but I don't want to spend a small fortune on yarn until I get really better at it. So this is a cheaper option because he sells wool. When we were there last year, it was like a 2 pounds of wool. 100% wool was like $16. It's really, really cheap. It's not real smooth or soft wool. It's more like outerwear wool. But to experiment, that's a cheap price to be able to experiment with the yarn. So that's one thing I really want to stop and get. There is the Yarn Outlet in Pawtucket. I have been there. I'm not sure if I'm going to go there or not. Depends time-wise. Because it wasn't real big. I thought it would be, and it really wasn't. And I'm going to go to East Greenwich to see Love to Knit. I stopped there last year. And Gail, Ann, and Marissa are the Yarn Shop girls. If you watch their podcast, that's where I'm going. If you don't watch their podcast, check them out. They're a lot of fun. And like I said, they're in East Greenwich, Rhode Island. So then I've written down food in the area, in case we're there for lunch or dinner. I don't want to be roaming around all over the place. So I've listed places and their addresses. Connecticut and Rhode Island are also known for hot dogs, and we like hot dogs. And you can tell I like hot dogs, yeah. Anyway, we're going to try some of the hot dogs that are local to the place. So I've written food places for that entire day that we're going to be out, because I know we're going to be eating either lunch or dinner somewhere outside of where our hotel is. So I've written down food choices for all of those areas for whenever we might be there. So we are going to be there in Newport for, let's see, 4 nights, 5 days. So when we leave, it'll be on a Saturday, and we are going to be headed from Newport to Milford, Connecticut. So we're going back across Connecticut to Milford's just outside Bridgeport. So it's about 2/3 of the way back across to Connecticut where we'll be going. So again, I have my little cheat sheet. Tells me where all the fast food and bathrooms are along I-95. And there's a couple of yarn shops that we would pass on the way out, but they were closed. A lot of yarn shops I find are closed on Mondays and Tuesdays, which are the days we would be coming through there. So on the way back, we'll hit them. In Mystic, Connecticut, there is Mystic River Yarns, and they actually carry, they have some local dyers called Ellen Cooper's Sonnets, Thistledown Yarns, Other Kingdoms, and Tidal Yarns. And some of these other yarn shops, I didn't write it in there, but some that I'm looking for specifically are Hedgehog Fibers and Sweet Georgia Yarn. I hear a lot of people talk about it, Quince & Co. So I'm hoping to find those. I do know that some of the yarn shops I'm going to have those yarns. So I am looking forward to checking that out. Hoping to get some of that. So the last night I have the hotel that we'll be staying in. Again, it's already paid for, and I have the restaurants in the area that are close to the hotel that we could eat at. And then the last day is just going from Milford home. So I have all that written down, and that is our vacation itinerary, and I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, I'm not totally finished with it yet, but it's coming along. And I've got a while yet, because like I said, we don't go till the fall. So I just kind of pick at it a little bit at a time. And I take all of this. I actually have a notebook, and it all goes in a binder. And I even have the days labeled with little divider tabs and everything. So everything's right at my fingertips, so that my husband drives, I navigate. I'm not a backseat driver. I really don't nag him going down the road. But I do tell him where we need to go, where our turns are going to be. And it's always nice to have somebody that's watching to say, you know, at the next exit you're going to do this, or, you know. So I like to plan things out. One last thing that I do just before we go on vacation, right before I pack, I go on to a weather channel, usually weather.com, and I do their 10-day forecast. And I check the area we're going to be in, so I make sure that we have appropriate clothing. You know, I mean, you don't want to take clothes for summertime and find out they're going to have a cold snap and it's going to be 60 degrees. You know, so I do check that out. One vacation we went on, it rained literally every single day. So it's always good to know, so you know how to dress appropriately, whether you're going to need extra shoes in case you get wet, you know, all those type of things. So that would be my last tip. And if you've enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up. Like I said, I used to do a lot of organizing. I used to have an organizing blog. Didn't last very long because I like talking to people more so than just writing about it. And I can talk much faster than I can write. So if you've enjoyed this, give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my channel and you would like to see more videos about yarn and knitting and other projects and stuff, click the little red subscription box below and subscribe. And otherwise, I will see you next week. Thanks a lot for stopping by.